Good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Ku McMahon. I am team lead of the Water and Energy for Food Grand Challenge. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar to help to give you a little bit of background on the program and our expression of interest. Just letting you all know that this session will be recorded. And with that, Vanessa, I turn it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Ku. Welcome, everybody, to the USAID Finance and Investment Network webinar on the Water and Energy for Food program. I'm Vanessa Holcomb-Mann, and I'm a Senior Investment Advisor with Invest. We've worked to support the Water and Energy for Food program over the past couple of years, conducting investment landscapes, and we're excited today to bring the network together to learn about the We4F program and opportunities for the investment ecosystem. As many of you know, USAID has continued to expand this network and look for new ways to engage the network, including by bringing opportunities beyond Invest and opportunities that exist in the broader USAID and donor landscape. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ku to provide an overview on We4F. Thanks, Ku.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. We appreciate your participation. And so with that, next slide, please. I want to talk about the bigger picture of the program. So Water and Energy for Food was created about 2 years ago with a consensus view amongst Swedish SIDA, USA, the Foreign Ministry of the Netherlands, the European Commission, and GIZ, who's working on behalf of GMZ, with the bigger picture lens of how do we help support farmers to produce food with less and more efficient and sustainable use of both water and energy. And so these donors have come together around this. It's based on a set of grand challenges that were created back in 2012 and ran through 2019, 2020, the Securing Water for Food program and the Power and Agriculture Energy Grand Challenge, which kind of looked at these two pieces of the nexus separately, supported innovators, and had some success, but still had some challenges and some opportunities we needed to try to address. And so the donors decided we're going to try this again, bring the nexus pieces together, and try to address these challenges. Next slide, please. And so overall, the donors are putting in $65 million into this effort around three focus areas. One, how do we help farmers produce more food with less and more efficient use of water? Two, how do we help them do that in energy? And that energy is along the value chain, including processing, cold storage, and the end and the production, beyond the production end of things. And then in some cases, you can get both water and energy savings when in food production, and we're supporting those as well. Next slide, please. And so it's a little hard to see, but we see this as both a nexus of challenges and opportunities. 70% of the world's water usage is for food production. 30% of the world's energy usage is for food production. And then you have a third of the food produced being wasted. So there's a lot of areas in which we could do better and be better, especially as we face the challenges of climate change, droughts, floods, which are affecting the regular rainfall that farmers have come to expect. So rains aren't arriving at the same time, and sometimes they don't arrive at all. And we need to help farmers to better adapt and become more resilient to this, specifically in the smallholder farmer space. You've got the other side in the production of food, and that farmers, through their efforts and activities, can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, both through their reduction of emissions from agricultural and farming equipment, but also by putting CO2 back into the ground through their activities in some cases. Next slide, please. And so why are we asking you to join us? So our main view is that we will not be able to do this alone. Governments won't be able to do it by themselves. Farmers will not be able to do it by themselves. Researchers will not be able to do it by themselves. But we see, especially because of both the Biden-Harris administration's focus on climate change and climate financing, as well as that of the other donors, including GIZ, that this is a space where you want to get in closer to the ground floor so you can reap the benefits later on. And so From our view, some of the things that we think will really help move you forward are participation in some of the investment rounds for some of our mid-stage innovators. We are supporting more than 60 innovations worldwide right now, 35 in and I'm going to pause myself just because there may be a technical difficulty. Okay, tells me it's working now. One is we have these more than 60 innovations around the world, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in a bit, that need investment, sometimes debt, sometimes equity, sometimes $250,000, sometimes $7 million. And so depending upon where your interest is in your niche, there may be space for you there. We expect that we're going to have a pipeline of 100 plus commercially viable SMEs and innovators across 3 regions within the next 6 months. And we hope that we'll also be able to add our East and West Africa innovations for GIZ in the next year or 2. Right now, just from the USAID side of things, we're covering 35 countries and through 3 regional innovation hubs that I'll talk about. And we expect to close investment rounds around $35 million for these companies in the next 3 years. And so what we believe is the value proposition is the opportunity to unlock both first loss capital as well as debt and equity investments on small and medium scale through the program. In addition, USAID, the Development Finance Corporation for the U.S. government, and CETA are working with certain organizations with a guarantee debt and equity instrument we hope to be able to announce in the next few months. But the biggest value proposition that I think, and I'll allow our investment teams to speak to, is that the reduced cost and time commitment from you as partners, because our program is undertaking a lot of the hard work of the due diligence, the on-the-ground views, getting these companies ready for investment. Next slide, please. So some other pieces of value addition. One, you can participate if you get in on the ground floor, devising and implementing innovative financing mechanisms, especially related to end user financing, gender lens investing, and other environment and climate focused investing. So we're looking for investors who are interested in pushing the barriers to go beyond just getting a rate of return, but also providing some benefit to the globe as well. Then our brokering units bring extensive experience in investment facilitation, as well as a local presence in each of the regions we work. So this isn't unlike the old programs that were based out of Washington. These are regionally based programs with on-the-ground country coordinators and investment facilitation teams that are really focused on what's happening within the regions. And our brokering units provide end-to-end deal support for investors, from the pipeline management to post-deal technical support and M&E. They also work with the companies before they ever come to you on making sure that they are investor ready in the first place. And we're focused on return of investment and social return of investment via Water Energy for Food's robust M&E framework, so that we keep an eye on not just what's happening with the dollar value, but what's happening both on the commercial side and the development targets, so that we're both making money and doing good for the world. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the hubs now. Next slide. So as I said, we have 5 hubs. One of them is for Southeast Asia, and Kelly will talk about that in a bit. Constantine will talk about the Middle East and North Africa region and our focus there. We also have a newly announced hub in Southern and Central Africa, which I'll talk a little bit about. And then we have the GIZ managed hubs in East Africa, based out of Nairobi, and West Africa, based out of Cote d'Ivoire. Next slide, please. And so I want to take a moment here to allow the people who do the work to talk about the work they do and give you a teaser into something that's upcoming in the near future. And we'll start with Kelly from the Southeast Asia Hub.
Great, thanks very much, Ku. Pleasure to be able to speak to everyone this evening. As Ku mentioned, we're known as the brokering unit within the hub, but we offer a lot more than just a sort of brokering or matchmaking function. We support cohorts of companies with full spectrum transaction advisory services. This could be things such as creating or refining marketing materials like teasers or investment memoranda. We work with management teams to refine their financial forecasts and their financial models. We compile virtual data rooms. We do a lot of that sort of sell-side banking type work that prepares these companies to engage with investors. We also provide support to investors as well, mainly around doing commercial due diligence and working through some of the logistics and administration of negotiating deals and closing deals. So I'll take the chance to discuss this in greater detail in a subsequent session, but just to provide a bit of a snapshot, our cohort companies right now are typically post-revenue with positive or close to positive operating income. They're doing revenues in the mid hundreds of thousands of dollars to low to mid single digits millions of dollars. Most have raised at least seed capital of some type or perhaps even Series A rounds and have recent post-money valuations in probably the range of the low to mid single digit millions of dollars. And they're looking for growth equity, debt, mezzanine capital across a range of different ticket sizes. So for our first cohort, we've got visibility on around $50 million in targeted capital raises that either have kicked off or are intending to kick off soon. We're not necessarily expecting 100% success rate, but we've been really excited to see that large amount come through in this initial pipeline. For those whom we're not working with immediately, as Ku mentioned, the technical assistance unit will be working with them to ensure investment readiness as they go along their journey with our program. And we're expecting a number of additional deals to kick off probably in the first half of 2022 and beyond as we add additional companies through our subsequent solicitations. So I'll leave it there for now, but very much looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Konstantin, for the MENA Hub.
Thanks, Ku. Greetings to all. Look, in a couple of minutes, a few messages. The first one is the team is about 4 people in terms of investment readiness and investment brokerage. Between the 4, we have more than 75 years of experience in raising funds and in helping small-scale social enterprises and medium-scale transform and create value, social value and financial value. And this is important. These are people from the field, having depth experience in closing on these transactions, helping negotiate. On the investment readiness, what we did is a number of webinars on basic financial management, on investment readiness journey, on company valuation, on how to negotiate term sheets. So this is followed by clinics, one-on-one clinics with most of these companies who are investment ready, sitting down with them and adapting all these templates to their specific needs. And finally, helping them on the investment brokerage link to potential investors. So we look forward to having many of you express the interest and we would look forward to working with you and presenting the portfolio of those companies. The second message, which is a good news, is that we have already, the program has been kicked off about 8 months ago. 3 of our companies have already raised pre-Series A funds. So this is very important, and we have 2 more, and some of them are in between the $500,000 to $5 million range in terms of debt and equity, with a big focus on equity funding that we have. The last message is that we will be launching a regional information session so that you'll be more than happy to reach out to us, and we'll include you in it so as to present you not only our program in MENA, but also present you the exciting portfolio of companies that we had the pleasure and the honor to work with over the past 9 months and in the years to come. Thank you, Ku.
Thank you to both of you for that. And so that's just a teaser of what we'll be talking about in the next 2 or 3 weeks with you with the regional EOI Q&A sessions. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, actually, before we do, can we go back 1 slide? So the last piece is on the Southern Central Africa Hub, which was just announced and launched in the last 2 weeks. We expect that come October, November, we'll be able to have an EOI session related to that hub because we will have both some legacy innovators that we've worked with in Southern and Central Africa over the last 7 years, plus we will be having our new call for innovations that we will get some new innovators in that pot and pool. So now we can go on to the next slide. So just to give you a bigger picture sense of what these hubs are doing, we're today just talking about the investment facilitation brokering side of things. But as I just noted, we have calls for innovation that identify innovators, and that's why we already have 60 plus across the globe that we're working with. We provide them with technical assistance, both on how their business models work, sales and marketing strategy, helping them in the ESG space on how to be better environmental stewards, how to bring women in both to their companies, and looking at marketing to women as customers. The brokering units, which you've just heard described, looking at the bigger picture lens around the enabling environment. By there, what we mean is, what is the policy space in which these companies are working with? What's hindering them from growing to be sustainably scalable? Or what can we do as donors or as our hubs to unlock in the policy space their ability to advocate for themselves, to get additional either funding or environmental regulatory help to help them succeed in the ways we're asking them to. And finally, and probably most importantly, the toughest nut to crack is end user financing. What we found in the previous two programs in our conversations with the World Bank and FAO is that smallholder farmers really do want the opportunity to use these new technologies and business models that can help them become more financially sustainable on the ground, but they don't have the upfront capital to do so. And so we've been both working with our firms and with other organizations to see how we can unlock that potential capital, because many of the farmers are paying the funds back. It's just they don't have it up front. Next slide, please. So what do our hub brokering units do? And you've heard a little bit of this already, but we just wanted to put it concretely for you. They mobilize private capital for our innovators. So both the customized financial solutions that address the investment constraints that Kelly talked about, the end-to-end transaction advisory services that both Kelly and Constantine talked about. They unlock and improve access to end-user financing. So one, identifying the end-user financing needs, which we do through some of our M&E work and our direct work with farmers on the ground, and also unlocking end-user financing mechanisms customized to our We4F innovators, as is done by the brokering units themselves. We also promote and mobilize ESG-focused investment instruments. So we're really focused on gender lens investing and climate lens investing for future We4F innovators, and preparing them to both in the smaller stage of small debt and equity investments, but also in the next 5 to 10 years when they've grown and they're prepared for larger investments. And most importantly, to reduce the barriers to investment for SMEs at the nexus. What we found is there is either an energy focus or a water focus, but many of these technologies can hit many buttons at once. And so we need to, one, support them to become investor ready, but also act as a liaison between you as investors who may not be in specific countries on the ground and may not have the background there, and our innovators who are on the ground doing the good work and just need the financial support to grow in a capital sense. Next slide, please. And so a little bit about our innovators now. And so I'm not going to give specific examples of them, but I will give some of the categories and types of things we're supporting. Next slide, please. So first, there's a lot of our work that's being done around renewable energy production and access to the agriculture value chain. So you can think here cold storage, solar cold storage. You can think of refrigeration units. You can think of mobile units that produce renewable energy for either pumping on the production side or electricity generation on the processing side. In addition, a large portion of our cohort is around more efficient, sustainable use of water, either through the irrigation side, better water quality, salinity and saltwater reuse. And then also we have our digital solutions, which are focused like one in the Middle East, which is helping farmers get data and information to make better decisions on when to irrigate, when to use fertilizer, when to plant. We also have a few of those in West Africa, one in East Africa, one in Southern Central Africa, and 2 in Southeast Asia. And in addition, compost and organic fertilizer, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. If you get compost down, it helps keep soil moist and keep water in the ground, and also significantly increases food production. And then a few others as well. And so that's just a small sampling of what you'll see. You'll get more specific company level information in the regional EOIs. Next slide. And so what are in general, are Innovators financing these. You heard this a little bit already, but their preferred deal size is between 250,000 to 2 million. We do have some who have investment needs as large as 7 to 9 million. But most of them are at the lower end at the $250,000 range, and they're preferring either equity, debt, convertible debt, some forms of blended capital, grants in a few cases, but we provide much of that. But we're open to others who are interested in getting into that space with us, and first loss capital. And one of the unique value propositions that we have through our hubs is that I have set aside some funds for first loss capital, such that we can work with you all as investors to come in together and support companies. And I think this goes without saying. Our innovators, our enterprises prefer patient capital because there's a bigger picture of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve with the funding that both we as donors are providing, and we're asking that you join us in providing. Okay, looks like there may be a question coming in. So it costs $65 million to mobilize $35 million in investment. Doesn't seem very efficient. Are we trying to get a 1-to-1 ratio, or what are we trying to get for We for Food? So what we're talking about as a program is, at a minimum, over the life of the 5 years of the program, $125 million in debt or equity investments for all of our innovators across our 5 regions. So it's a 2-to-1 at a minimum that we're looking for. We hope to get to 9 or 10-to-1 by the end of the program. But to be clear, that $65 million covers a lot of things that we as governments can fund that many others are not willing or able to fund. That includes sometimes personnel costs for companies, for people to go out in the field and talk to customers to understand the needs and the perspectives and the values of women and female smallholder farmers on the ground, to look at what's happening at the policy and regulatory space, which that funding is in many cases not available from the investment community. And so that's why we step in to help and provide some of that. And also, most importantly, putting the bulwark of the technical assistance that many people claim to do, but don't often do in reality. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the expression of interest. And in short, it's basically us asking you to let us know if you're interested in potentially working with us. And I'll go through that in a little bit more detail now. Next slide, please. So one, we identify our potential partners through our hubs for Southeast Asia, MENA, Southern Central Africa. We then onboard the interested investment partners as per their regional focus. Some of you may have foci across many different regions, and we'll connect you individually with the different regions. And then we identify those innovative investment approaches to catalyze commercial investment. Some cases they may be standard, it's just a basic deal. Some cases you may want to work with us to create something new that hasn't been seen before to address the specific needs that I've already identified. And then we want to identify investment partners in addition who are focused on the gender lens investing, focused on the base of the pyramid impact, and focused on environmental and climate sustainability. Next slide, please. So how does this work? We're launching the EOIs in the next week or two through each of the hubs. Then we ask that you submit any questions you have about the process or how this works at each hub, because each one is slightly different. And then we would ask that, once you've had your questions answered, you submit the responses to our expression of interest. It's a very simple, I think it's a 2-page form. In some cases, you're like, I'm busy, I don't have time to fill out a form, but I'd like to talk to you and potentially be engaged. And so you can reach out to our hub investment facilitation teams and brokering units. They'll set up a conversation with you, and they can collect the information that way. And then they'll just evaluate the submitted responses to make sure that what you're trying to do and what the hubs are trying to do are in alignment. And then they'll reach back out to you and say, we'd like to potentially work with you and take you behind the curtain, if you will, about more specific details on our different companies and what potential investment rounds could be coming up that you might be interested in joining. And when we get new companies, as we will in March, April for both of these hubs, and actually probably also for Southern Central Africa for that as well. To be clear, for East and West Africa, we're not there yet. GIZ, this is new for them, even supporting innovators with supporting companies with direct investment from them through grant capital. So they're taking a little bit of a slower approach in this and letting us work out the kinks, if you will, through our other hubs. Next slide, please. So I want to reach out to each of our brokering unit team members to talk about the next steps for their regions, and then to Jatin to talk about it globally. And we'll start with Kelly from Southeast Asia.
Sure, thanks very much, Ku. So just real briefly on this call, as Ku mentioned, we'll intend to have a more complete session in the next couple of weeks. We'll reach out over the appropriate channels to make sure that that's adequately publicized in terms of when and where it will take place. But similar to this, it'll be a virtual session, and during that, we'll dive more into some of the details of what we're able to offer, what the pipeline looks like, what some of the trends that we're seeing might be, and where we think that we'd be able to add value and as Ku mentioned, reduce some of those information asymmetries and upfront costs that could otherwise prevent investment. So stay tuned, please, for that, and look forward to engaging with you next during that session.
Thank you, Kelly. Constantine?
Yeah, Sabine Saliba is the investment manager. I work closely with her and with Joel on it. Very similar to what you've heard. We will be planning this the week of around the September 10th, September 11th. We will inform you. We're very excited about the portfolio of companies that we have. As I said, some of them have already raised 1 or 2 rounds of equity and debt funding. We will be providing you more information about those companies. We'll also provide you information in terms of the process. We have been reaching out to several of you already in understanding your needs and making sure that there is a close alignment between your investment strategy and the profile of our companies. Just to mention, we really are combining innovation, social impact, and financial scalability on it. So this is the key themes that you will have across all the companies that we have. And look forward to meeting a number of you over the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you both. And so for Southern Central Africa, as I said, they're just getting up and running. So I expect that they'll have one of their kickoff webinars in the October-November timeframe, but we'll both reach out through the Invest Network and the We for Food Network to keep you updated on that. And with that, Jatin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ku. So I'm part of the USAID Secretariat, which oversees the 3 hubs as mentioned in the webinar. So if you have intention of working in multiple regions, you can reach out directly to me, and I can liaise with all the hubs to direct you with the right person. Additionally, if you see there is any knowledge management sharing that could be done with the program at a global level, please feel free to reach out to give an email address, and I'll be happy to work with you in that context as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Jatin. Next slide. So wanted to thank you for your time and hopefully your questions. As we said, we'll be reaching out through the network for the specific regional expressions of interest to inform you when they're open and also to take your questions related to them. But for now, I and the other members here are happy to take any questions you have at this point in time. So Jatin, any additional questions? Have they come in?
Yes, so I'll start with the first one. There was a question on what is the process if they have to work in multiple regions. So I'd mentioned a bit, if you want to add anything else on that.
Sure. So I think if you're interested in working in multiple regions, the info at weforf.org. So each region has a separate process because they have, the unique aspects that they're working in. So their EOIs will be slightly different, but we've worked with them so that they're fairly well aligned. There may be one question in Middle East that is not in Southeast Asia or vice versa, but they're pretty well aligned. So I don't think that will be much of an issue for you. And Jatin can help ease and facilitate that process if you're interested in working in multiple regions. Jatin, anything you want to add?
Yep, as I mentioned, please reach out and I'll be liaising with each of the hubs according to the needs as mentioned and directing you accordingly.
Okay, next question.
So another one is, it seems your focus is to work directly with investors, but is there a role for consulting firms that have helped to develop creative finance models to unlock investment to smallholder farmers related to water, food, and energy?
So I'm going to give a high-level overview of that one, and I'm going to turn over to our brokering unit teams because they deal with this directly. In principle, yes. I would say, though, and I think this is important to say, if you're looking for funding sources for the work you're doing, we have in all of our hubs vendor systems. So you could join the vendor network for the hub if you're looking to be paid for it, because this process isn't for that. It's to unlock those other forms of capital. But if you're looking to partner and not be paid, then yes, you can definitely contact through this EOI process directly with either or any of our hubs for that matter. But Kelly and then Konstantin, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Go. I mean, I think from my perspective, certainly we welcome complementary service providers. It's always the case that there could be certain proficiencies or skills that we don't organically have. If there were a law firm or accounting firm, an audit firm, some type of specialist technical advisor that would assist with due diligence, this type of thing, that would maybe be the most directly applicable role for somebody who's going to be assisting at the brokering unit level. But in a broader sense, and this is in the language of the EOI, so happy to address further questions on it when we have our session in a few weeks' time. But in a broader sense, if again, there's the ability to crowd in capital in a way that either through networks or sort of creative mechanisms we can't do either efficiently or at all, then we certainly welcome the chance to work with organizations that can provide that capability.
Look, I echo what you've heard from both gentlemen. I give you one example. We have one company that wants to raise equity capital in the US. We look forward to have a person with expertise to do this, who have done it, who has a track record on it. They're raising between $5 to $10 million. So this is one example of you'll be paid for this. You will have we will have prepared the company. The company is already have the complete list of investment memorandum, financial model, valuation, etc. So a lot of the work would have been done for you. It's now the question of taking them and introducing them to your own network. So this is one example. We have many other examples across the MENA region, depending on the needs and the challenges of those companies. So by all means, feel free to reach out. We'll see whether you're a partner that want to work with us, or you are a service provider and will be paid for the services you'll be charging, align with the technical assistance specifications that the companies would have. Thank you.
Thank you, Konstantin. Next question, Jack.
So there's a question around how were the hub teams developed? Is it still possible to be a hub partner? I think second part you may have answered, but first part maybe you can take. Thank you.
Sure. So the hub teams were developed over a couple of years, actually. The donors had spent about 18 months looking over the strengths and weaknesses of the predecessor program, SWIFT and Power and Agriculture, and saw while we reached 7 million farmers and positively impacted both their water and agriculture usage as far as making it more sustainable and increasing food production, what we found was on the investment side for the companies we were working with, they weren't getting nearly as much investment as we previously hoped. And it was because we didn't focus on the brokering units. We focused on technical assistance before. So we modified the way in which we brought them together. One of the other things that was key was having the more local, the better. And so for resource and cost constraint needs, we both have country coordinators, but these hub teams. So that's kind of how it was developed. It took about 18 months. And for our units, we contracted consortia to come together to meet all of the needs that we outlined. As far as joining the hubs, you potentially, as I just outlined, could apply to the vendor networks for either hub to provide technical assistance. But as like a manager or leader of a hub, that ship has sailed. I think it's the simplest way to say it. Next question.
Yeah. Next question is, will you invite us to the investment rounds, or do we need to tell you that we are interested?
And so in principle, we need you to let us know that you're interested in working with the program, and then we would be able to invite you to the rounds. But Kelly or Constantine, if you want to add or modify that statement.
Yeah, thanks, Go. I mean, I think we'll, as part of the the partnership that we're establishing through this EOI, it's our job as the hub to make sure that you know about our pipeline and about the deals that that we have coming into a state of investment readiness, including the relevant details that'll let you determine whether or not there's appetite or a good fit from your mandate. So that's sort of, again, what we owe to you, and that's released in a proactive and regular way. So I think in that sense it is an invitation. That said, there will of course be a certain amount of diligence initially required on the part of partnered investors to determine fit and whether or not it's worth carrying things forward. We do, as we've been explaining, a lot to, we think, overcome the initial costs and some of those barriers, but there still will be costs in time and in executing diligence that you'll have to undertake. So ultimately, certainly your decision and something we'll work on together, but we would look to be proactive in our outreach. I'm not sure if that directly answers the question, but that's the best way I can think to put it.
Just to add to this, reach out. Reach out. It's we have an exciting portfolio, and there are 3 dimensions, not only in terms of investments, because you might not see the best fit now, but this program is a multi-year program. So let's establish the rapport, let's understand your investment strategy, and then we will find the right companies that meet the best this investment strategy. Number 1. Number 2 is you have a portfolio and you have contacts across the region. We need you because this is an outreach call. You have a number of companies that could benefit. We're talking about up to $300,000 in terms of grant. We're talking 3 TAs for each of those companies. So we are significantly de-risking these investments for you. So you need to, in some ways, be our ambassadors and champions to be able to promote this program across your portfolio and across your network. And number 3, as a potential business partner that could work with us in terms of some of the TAs, or just partner in terms of making sure that we are addressing the needs of these companies. So by all means, reach out. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I'd just like to raise, because it kind of was the previous question, and like, how is this put together? And so if both of you could talk, you talked a little bit about this earlier, Constantine, in the 75 years of experience, but what your organizations that you're working with, your background in investment facilitation and brokering, just to give the wider audience a sense of who they're working with. So when we built the program and built the brokering units, we purposely went outside of government and found investment professionals to staff the brokering units of the hub rather than 1 or 2 consultants. So if you could each speak to that, Kelly, and then Constantine.
Sure, thanks, Ku. Yeah, just briefly, I'm proud to represent Cross Boundary, which is a global investment firm. We have an advisory side of our business, which has successfully advised on close to $1 billion in closed deals across some pretty tough markets, frontier and emerging markets, with an early track record in fragile and conflict-affected states. We've advised on an additional $2 to $2.5 billion in deals that are either still ongoing or for one reason or another didn't close. We know that doing work in these geographies is sometimes challenging. So that's sort of our track record. We've been very lucky to be able to expand globally in recent years. We also have investment vehicles that allow us to sort of generate a really deep institutional knowledge of what it looks like from the investor side of the table, coming up on around $75 million in AUM, focused on Africa for now, but again, sort of a great symbiosis there between our advisory sides and our direct investment vehicles. I personally have experience across Africa and now in Southeast Asia, and prior to joining Cross Boundary, worked on Wall Street for a number of years.
Thank you, Constantine.
Yes, I work with Nicolas Farhat, with Sabine Saliba, and Suha and Joel. They all come from corporate banking experience. Between the 4 of them, they have about 40 years of proven track record in structuring these deals across the region. Personally, I've been heading HP Financial Services for close to 20 years. We have funded. This is the, if you want, internal private equity arm of Hewlett-Packard back in the 80s and 90s. We have structured more than 500 deals across the world. I was heading it in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and I was heading it in Asia Pacific. Subsequently, I was the group CEO of two large private investment group, Al Ghurair Investment, Al Masoud. These are large established across 25 countries. So we do have quite a breadth in terms of experience in the region of it. And lately I've been with Berytech, and through Berytech we have three separate funds. These funds, IM Capital, Berytech Fund 1, Berytech Fund 2. We have funded close to 100 companies across the region, focused in Lebanon, but also on the region. So a substantial amount of experience. We look forward to working with you on this. Thank you.
Yes, and I just wanted to emphasize that point, that this isn't traditional development. This is doing development differently, bringing in the private sector to focus on the needs of private sector companies with the background and experience to do so, and understand both the challenges and limitations on the government side, but also the strengths on the private sector side, because that's our overall focus as donors, is to find these companies, help bring them forward, support them to make them sustainable, and then hand them over to you all as the private sector and let you all take it from there. Any other questions, Jonathan?
Yes, so there's one. Would V4F funds act as a risk guarantee for higher than expected default by end users when end user financing is included?
Say that again, Jonathan, and a little slower, please.
Yeah, the question is, would V4F funds act as a risk guarantee for higher than expected default by end users when end user financing is included in the program?
Yes, it could. And so that's one of the models we've talked about potentially, is if we can create a pool of investment that we could act as a guarantee risk with some of our funds to help offset the losses for smallholder farmers, especially if we could include in there some sort of farmer insurance component, such that we could, for the climate mitigation risk, reduce the overall losses, and in addition, provide the farmers with both data and other input services to increase the likelihood that they'd be successful and reduce the risk.
Great. There's another one, a couple of more questions to go. One is, what is the mechanism for portfolio management of the innovators from the program end? And the other part to that question is, can prominent innovator incubators partner with the hub to provide portfolio management services?
Sure. And so I think this goes to the overall hub structures, that we have a regional innovation hub manager who oversees each of our individual hubs, and they're supported by different teams: our technical assistance advisory team, our grants and finance teams, our ESG teams, and our brokering unit investment facilitation teams. And so they provide to the overall portfolio of innovators that come out of our calls for innovation a networked and strongly resourced and communicating team who provide at a country level to the individual needs of the innovators that we work with. So when it comes to portfolio management and partnership, I think I speak for the hub managers. We would, especially if our portfolios are aligned and that we're supporting the same companies, and you want to have the different specialists talking about the patient in the same way to understand their needs. We would be welcome. We would welcome, communication, collaboration, and potential partnership on those different portfolios, especially if they've been brought into our program based on your suggestion that they have come and applied for our calls, and so we can get some knowledge on what support you've previously given them, and we can partner on between the two organizations what we could provide that company going forward. Next question.
Great. And this one is, any possibility of collaboration with other prominent programs running in the nexus areas of V4F with similar themes and supporting innovators?
Yes. So at a program level, this is kind of global. We had the UN Food Sustainability Summit pre-meeting a couple of weeks ago along with World Bank and FAO, International Water Management Institute, and some others. And so bigger picture, we as larger organizations, donor groups and the big research organizations are trying to do a much better job of communicating and collaborating around what we're doing both in individual countries, at the regional level, and globally, so that we can move this agenda forward at a wider scale audience. So yes, specifically with FAO, International Water Management Institute, we are partnering with them specifically through GIZ for FAO and through USAID for International Water Management Institute in 2 or 3 of our regions. We also are open and work with partnering with others. And Jatin, I'll defer to you to talk about our partnership practices and policies.
Sure. So I think there are 4 key partners. One, which we're talking about, the investment partners. Other, there are donor policy level partners who come in with money or in-kind support at a steering level. Then there are knowledge management partners to share lessons learned at the global and regional policy levels, both from bottom up in our program and also take learnings from other such partners and include it in V4F. And then fourth are the technical assistance partners who come in and work very in a focused manner with individual innovators, helping them scale in the journey in future. So those are the 4 kind of partners. If you're interested in any, and you seem you fit in any one of those, or maybe in multiple roles, please feel free to email me, and the email address was given as info@v4f.org. And there are a couple of questions I'll also about the vendor network and consulting role in the new hub. So any other questions on how to join vendor network in particular hubs, please feel free to email me at info@v4f.org, and I can take those questions. There's one question which is related to the newly launched hub. The question is the consulting role to provide in newly launched hub?
Yes, so that role has been taken. We, in our due diligence and our brokering side, we do that. So the new hub for Southern Central Africa is managed by the Tetra Tech Corporation, well, Tetra Tech, I should say, in alignment with Open Capital Advisors, the International Water Management Institute, and one other organization that is escaping me at this point. But they will have a vendor network as well. And we expect that to launch in about 4 to 5 months. We have to get the hub team up and running and get the people in place and get our innovators. And alongside getting the innovators, we'll have our expression of interest process for the investment side of things and also the vendor network side of things.
Great. And I think there's one last question, not fully complete. Are you supporting small scale businesses for private? Maybe they meant private sector.
Yes. So, and if we can turn it back to Konstantin and to Kelly to talk, and for a minute or two each in some detail. But yes, our focus in the program is on small and medium enterprises that are trying to grow to sustainable scale. At a minimum, they had 5,000 customers or other end users who were purchasing or using their products when they came into the program. And our goal is to get them to hundreds of thousands of customers or end users by the time they leave our program. But almost all of them are SMEs. I can only think of 1 or 2 NGOs, and even in those cases, they're converting the NGO to make a new sustainable business offshoot arm. But Kelly or Konstantin, if you want to add anything.
Thanks, Scott. I don't think I'd really add anything other than to just emphasize that we're really focused on this idea of sustainable scaling. So we want all of the different support that the hub offers to accomplish a number of different aims. Our social and environmental impact themes are extremely important to the overall thesis. But when we say sustainable scaling, we recognize that we're not going to be able to, we're not going to be around forever. The hub is a finite program, of course, and we really want to be able to set these SME management teams up for continued success, whether that's reinvesting in their own business to grow or raising capital from outside sources. So whether it's initially engaging with a capital raise or working with the technical assistance unit to understand best practices for financial management and cash management and this type of thing, that from a commercial viability perspective is really the goal.
Yeah, just to emphasize, this is not an accelerator. We're not working with startups. We are hoping that these companies graduating from accelerators in 2 or 3 years down the road could apply for our program, but it's very much SME focused, $500,000 to $10 million, 10 people to 200 people. So this is really SME across the region. And the interesting point for all of you is the amount of synergies that is now, as the portfolio is shaping up. We see companies partnering with each other within the WE4F community. We see it in the region, and I'm sure we're going to see it across the region. So there is a lot of synergy potential across these companies that would help us in terms of scaling. So yes, SME, yes, social enterprise, yes, in terms of innovation, and yes, of course, in terms of financial sustainability and the impact that you generate. Thank you.
Okay, Jonathan, was that the final question?
Yes, I think there was one more. You partly answered it, but maybe a little bit more around what about NGO is we4F going to fund it to implement community project? But
I'd say in principle, there's the possibility of that, yes, but because of our focus on sustainable scale, on having a proven business model, on being financially sustainable after the life of the program, 99% of NGOs don't fit into that model. That's the lesson learned, or research organizations for that matter. That's our lesson learned from our previous 2 programs. And so that 1%, those unicorns who have been able to use proven and sound financial management business practices to create offshoots that are financially sustainable businesses, those folks can apply, but no, the program is not, through its grant mechanisms, is not supporting that. We are providing, in some cases, technical assistance to NGOs, or conversely, have technical NGOs in the vendor pools who are providing technical assistance to others. But in general, this is focused on SMEs and NGOs that are trying to spin off and have already proven with a minimum number of customers and end users their potential to scale to a wider adoption.
great. Thanks, Ku. That's all those questions. Over to you for closing remarks.
Thank you very much. And so I appreciate those of you that have joined. I hope that this will be shared widely, so even folks that didn't join will get a sense of what we're doing as Water and Energy for Food, why our focus is on investment facilitation and reaching wider scale sustainable adoption of these SMEs to hundreds of thousands, hopefully millions of smallholder farmers in the next 3 to 5 years. With, our goal is $125 million in debt and equity investments for our companies in that next 3 to 5 year time frame, and hope you join us on that journey to reach that goal. So thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.